answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Well, I was just getting ready to sink my teeth into this rant when I saw, was it Dreamweaver in the chat room? Who who says the subject of my next rant is, let's say developmentally disabled. I should just go nice on him. Sorry. Can't do it. He's a grown adult. He put his words out there. He can defend them from my little attacks here. Ron Nehring, who bills himself as a national and international strategist, commentator, and consultant. Hey, me too, Ron. Wrote this piece in Huffington Post called Medical Marijuana is Far from Medicine. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. He opens, of course, with the whole, what about the children? We got to protect the children and vulnerable adults from the destruction substance abuse can cause. We got to do that. Not the alcohol and tobacco. We don't have to protect the adults from that. The adults who drink alcohol, they can go ahead and drink alcohol. If they got a problem with it, we'll trust them to, enroll themselves into some sort of substance abuse or Alcohol Anonymous or something. We'll let adults deal with that addiction on their own. Other addictions, other drugs. No, we got to do it for them. So, of course, this guy's teamed up with Project Sam, smartapproaches.com, with Patrick Kennedy and David Frum. And he says part of the reason he wants to do this is to protect young people from drugs. Of course, it's always about the children. And to roll back recent advances by groups seeking to expand drug use through legalization. This is one of the things that really pisses me off when I'm having to deal with these prohibitionists, is their idea that what I do as someone who believes in ending prohibition is designed to expand drug use. That I want to see more people using drugs. That it's my goal somehow that everybody should get high. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. I could give 0.2 of a tick turd whether you get high or not. I could care less. What I don't want to see happen is, based on your choices of how you getting high, the cops hauling you away in cuffs, breaking up your family, breaking down the door, firing their weapons, shooting the dogs. That's what I don't want to see happen. Whether or not you get high or not, that's your business. You could be drinking. You could be smoking cigarettes. Maybe you get a thrill by putting on one of those flying squirrel costumes and, dropping off of a mountaintop somewhere. Great. Maybe you like to skateboard. Whatever your thing is, I'm cool with it as long as you're not bugging me, as long as you're not forcing me into any use. And I'm not forcing you into any use either. So when this Ron Nehring comes up and says, groups seeking to expand drug use through legalization. Why we seek to legalize has nothing to do with whether or not more people smoke or less people smoke pot. It has to do with, given that there will be people who smoke pot, should we throw them in cages for that? That's what it comes down to, Ron. And then there's this point that he brings up, and we're seeing this from all of the drug warriors. This is right out of Kevin Sabet's handbook. 1 in 6 people who try marijuana as a kid, even once, will become addicted to it. Nora Volkow is the one who's been putting this stat out from National Institutes of Drug Abuse. And I just wish I knew how they're defining this addiction. They say 1 out of 11 people who try marijuana will develop a dependence on it, as defined by the DSM-4. The problem is, defining this addiction is A, people who use it often, in B, the face of negative consequences. Well, since smoking marijuana is illegal, there's a negative consequence. So any use, by that definition, can somehow be construed as being addiction. That it causes severe negative consequences. People that want to stop can't stop. But if we had that same sort of definition for alcohol, continuing to drink alcohol despite negative consequences, and if the mere sight or smell of beer on your breath or a beer can in your car was enough to do a stop and frisk, and if we find a single sip of alcohol anywhere near you enough to arrest you and cost you your job, and you still continue to use alcohol, by God, we'd have a whole lot more problem alcoholics, wouldn't we? At least by that definition. So that's another part that always bothers me about this idea that 1 in 6 who try marijuana as a kid will become addicted to it without defining what are we talking about addiction. I really hate just casually throwing the word addiction around. This man who writes this talks about how it's a deeply personal issue. For 7 years, I lived with my 2 parents while they were helpless against the addictions that had befallen them. It's something I never want to see happen to anyone else. Well, Ron, you and I are in the same boat, pal. Up until I was age 12, my dad was addicted to speed and alcohol, and I lived through all the horrors that wrought upon our family. But never once did I think cops bursting down the door, shooting our family dog, and hauling him off for a prison sentence would have done us any good as kids. So don't play the whole, oh, I'm the child of an alcoholic, child of addicts card. I got you trumped. And so this idea that you say these kids are going to become addicted to it, man, when I think of addiction, I think of my dad in the back of a trailer when I was 10 years old for 3 weeks straight, trying to kick alcohol and speed cold turkey, from the screams that would come out from that place, from him trying to pick imaginary bugs off of his skin, to him violently puking and shaking and going through the delirium tremens and possibly risking death doing that. That's addiction, friends. That's addiction. I have yet to find the marijuana smoker, no matter how badly marijuana has affected their life and been a detriment to them, who risked death trying to kick it. So I do not like lightly tossing around the word addiction. But let's go to this stat. They say 1 in 6 people who try marijuana as a kid will become addicted to it. I looked up the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, and there's a variable there that tells you how old someone was when they first tried marijuana. And you can cross-reference that variable based on how often they are currently using marijuana. So for marijuana addiction, I just said, all right, let's take the variable that'll tell us how many of them are smoking pot monthly. And here's what I found. For people below the age of 15 years old, if you tried pot younger than age 15, 28% of you are now smoking pot monthly. If you tried pot below the age of 18, 22% of you are smoking pot monthly. If you tried pot above the age of 18, it drops all the way to 9.5%. And in that mid-teen years, age 16 to 21, where most people about the age, that's kind of the median ages, most people try pot in their life, it's 12.7%. So sure, if someone is smoking pot, starting pot before the age of 15, do we find them ending up to being monthly pot smokers later in life? Yes. This is why we stand for legalization, and we want to have those kids carded so that there won't be an economic opportunity for teenagers to deal weed in the school parking lot and not check anybody's ID. Do you know how many of these kids are able to get a hold of tequila? Very few, because there's no high school tequila dealers. They got to corrupt some adult. They got to steal it from a parent's liquor cabinet. They got to corrupt some adult on the street to buy it for them, or they've got to corrupt some adult who's the clerk who doesn't care about their IDs. But at least somewhere along the line, there's a chance that an adult can stop this. With marijuana, there's no adults involved at all. The kids get the weed from other kids. And that's what we're trying to solve here. That's what we're trying to stop here. And by the way, speaking of those same statistics, in that same document that is linked to by Ron Nehring in this Huffington Post piece, in that same document are the quotes from National Institutes of Drug Abuse showing a constant and amazing decline in the teen use of alcohol, and a constant and amazing decline in the teen use of tobacco. Both of them down from their peaks in 1997 and 1994, respectively, to some of the lowest recorded levels of teen alcohol and tobacco use ever recorded. How many adults did we arrest to get those results? Because part of what they say here is that we have to keep marijuana illegal. In fact, further on down here, they say that we have to, real reform would mean more treatment and prevention education, not increased access to a drug that sends more kids to treatment than all other drugs combined. Well, how much more access to alcohol and tobacco is there than there is to marijuana? And yet, the kids using those drugs have declined to their lowest recorded rates ever. You know why? Because through regulation, we were able to do strict ID carding for tobacco. We were able to put tobacco behind locked cabinets. We were able to make sure the kids couldn't easily steal it, shoplift it. We stopped the Joe Camel advertising. We seriously restricted all advertising on tobacco. And through all of that, we got teen smoking rates to their lowest rates ever. Ditto with alcohol. We had the move to raise the drinking age to 21 across all the states throughout the late 80s. We had increased campaigns, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, public service campaigns, Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk, more education, and we got fewer kids to drinking alcohol without arresting a single person. Now, he continues on with a whole lot of stuff. He's got the old, today's marijuana is 5 or 6 times stronger than it was in the 60s and 70s. You know how you know someone's lying when they tell you that? The ability to measure the strength of THC wasn't invented until the 1970s. So we don't know how strong the weed was in the 60s. And of course, we all know the potency thing is a lie. He continues with Project Sam being a response to the lavishly funded efforts of George Soros. Thank you, George, for my lavishly funded, well-heeled drug legalization lobby. The guy supports Nancy Reagan's Just Say No, for God's sake. How seriously can we really take this guy? We'll talk a little bit more about this in Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. You can join us at 971-533-7111. We'll also catch up on the latest news from Boston, find out what's happening there. And Brian the Red will be back tomorrow. He was just out today for a previous engagement. So, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here at Roll J. We're back in just a moment with Toker Talk Radio. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
Take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down.